aggressive marketing is great. And I think with a door knocker mentality, it's as many, as many doors as possible. And that kind of carries over into the digital marketing. And having somebody who can guide you through that will let you know whether or not you're accidentally biting off more than you can chew when it comes to growing your digital brand. And so just having somebody to be able to ask those questions can make a world of difference when you're growing your digital brand.
Yeah, it's a good point. And Madison, honestly, I think we're one of the only companies that would tell them the truth and help them. I'm one of the only guys that these guys that get on the phone that knows roofing, that knows what they're talking about, and would say, hey, man, that's not the right move to make right now. Here's as aggressive as we can get, and this is what we can do. And so, and if you're not told that and helped with it, and somebody doesn't lay things out for you, you can have a problem with stuff. Hey there, guys. It's Nolan and Madison here with Roofing Webmasters. Today's title is COVID-19, the death of door knocking. And I don't know, Madison, how would you normally intro that? This is my first video back for a while, guys, and podcast here. So I don't know. You probably have a more professional format than me.
I think you're hitting it on the head pretty well. We're doing a good job.
All right. So Madison, people have been calling me since this happened, and overall, we've been hearing from about the same amount of people as normal. I'll kind of go off on a little bit of a side topic here for a minute, and that, for me as a business person, actually, Madison, I'll tell you a story that happened earlier. I was talking to the other owner, John, and we actually lost a client that basically shut their website down. And I'm sorry, just shut down their whole business. So coronavirus hit and starts being referred to as COVID-19. He freaked out a little too much and stopped all marketing. He sent everybody home. He quit going on roofs. He quit giving bids. And you dial forward like 2 months later, 6 weeks later, what is it? It's May 4th today. And we're kind of deep in it, at least here in Texas, aren't we? I think we're kind of peaking on the bell curve, aren't we, as far as how many people, the spread is probably right at the apex and about to start going back.
I certainly hope so. I think it's lasted longer than many people were anticipating.
It sure does feel like it. Although besides people having problems, which I'm not a proponent of, I'm enjoying making food and going on walks. It feels like the 1980s or 1990s to me, frankly. So that part of it I don't hate. I overall, I like a lot of it as far as the family unity, at least for us. I hear it's been opposite for some, but for us, it hasn't been bad. So that guy actually is not a client anymore because he just shut it all down. And what ended up happening with him is that he shut it down so much he couldn't start it back up again. And so he freaked himself out. And one of the things I'm telling people when I talk to them is like, it's not like we're all going to shut down our businesses intentionally. That guy did, but most business owners have had an opposite reaction to this. They're working harder just to stay in business. And some of them, if not almost all of them that I've talked to, have done very, very well. Madison, the only people I've heard that have done poorly are the roofers that are dependent on referral and building trade. So anybody organically optimized, and this is true, I've talked to a bunch of guys, they're all the same or better. And whether you believe in, praying for hail or not, it's been a great storm season for the roofers across the nation. I'm sure that you saw those storm cells that were, parked over the central and then the East Coast. I mean, we really had a lot of storms.
I've been talking with my mom about storm season, hail and stuff like that, and she's like, "Oh, it's coming. It's coming."
It's been a good year for storms, and I don't know for sure. I don't follow hail trace and all that as much as the roofers do, but probably as good as 2016 or so, shaping up for 2020, which isn't bad considering there's COVID-19 and stuff milling around, right? So
yeah, it's a good point. Those essential businesses just keep on carrying on, and it's not like people stop needing roofing services.
Yeah, it's nice to be working with essential businesses. I'm personally very grateful. So as far as door knockers are concerned, like that guy just decided to stop everything, which is kind of crazy. It's easy to see in hindsight. you can understand where he's coming from, but most business owners have had an opposite reaction to that. Me being one of them, working harder, making sure that everything's going to be okay. Even being at home, I'm getting more work done, doing more stuff. Back on podcast videos here as one of the things, by the way. I had stopped for a little bit, and Madison and some other people taking over. And, I don't know if I could call it lazy because I work hard, but anyway, it's been a while. So this is my first one back, and I wanted to talk about door knocking because there was a guy that came on that I saw in a social media post. It was a door knocking guy pushing marketing, and this is for a different episode. But I know he doesn't know anything about organic and online marketing, but he's selling it to roofers, and he's selling it under premising that door knocking's dead. I've been talking about door knocking being, dead before all this happened, because Madison, people your age probably wouldn't even dream of answering the door. I might still open the door for somebody, but I pretty much don't do it either. Like, can you imagine just opening the door and having a conversation with somebody even 90 days ago, but dial forward through COVID-19, and I think it's against the law in a lot of cities to knock on the door right now.
Yeah, the only people we want to see at our door right now are either family, the Amazon delivery man, or our favorite takeout place.
Yeah, I can't believe people are still ordering takeout, although I ate Chipotle today. But I feel better if I can warm it up, because I've heard it can kill, so I'll nuke it and then eat it, But anyway, and there's a guy that does a comedy skit about it that Seinfeld was talking about on driving in the comedian cars to get coffee, and one of the guys had a bit on the word company when we used to have company, and you'd save like special cake for the company, and nobody uses the word to have company anymore because no one invites anyone over. So even though family might show up, Madison, pretty much that doesn't happen anymore either. So if somebody knocks on your door, it's, somebody trying to sell something or take the census or who knows who it is, but it's usually not something great unless they just knock on the door and leave and left a package, right? But,
yeah, that's a good point. I mean, half the time if somebody would knock at my door, I'd be like, half of me would be thinking, are they here to kill me for some reason?
Get a gun, protect yourself. And of course you have Ring, and you have cameras with doorbells with cameras, and you have stuff like that. And people, just don't need to answer the door anymore. So when I would talk to these door knocking roofers like 10 years ago, they would call and then get off the phone. They would be kind of interested and be like, nah, I knock doors, Or and about 5 years ago, I'd get calls and really hardly ever get these guys signed up because their focus is not on getting one location going. And the question, Madison, would be, Nolan, I need 25 addresses to show up because I work Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas, and Florida. And I need locations in Wichita, Orlando, Miami, Houston, and Dallas, and all this stuff. And Madison, I'll ask you without prepping you on this stuff. Can somebody go get 25 locations to show up on Google My Business and have them all operate?
Oh, no, not without years of groundwork beforehand.
Madison, are people that try to get 25 locations, do they have legitimate locations in the eyes of Google?
No, because most of them will probably be residential addresses, and Google's going to strike off the majority of those.
So I have this conversation, Madison. I kind of put Madison on the spot, but I have this conversation almost every day. And the conversation is, well, I've got a separate location. Well, it's a share space, and I was like, well, no, I know it's shared. They don't want the, well, no, I got my own executive office there, and I can use my own conference room. And I'll be like, yeah, but there's P.O. boxes behind the receptionist desk. And the whole thing was set up as a shill primarily to promote addresses for people to get Google locations to show up. And Google, who mapped the whole world, is very well aware of it. And if you try to promote an address in that location, you're highly likely to get it banned. And there's no point in putting that much. And they'll argue with me like I'm Google. And I was like, hey, go sue Google. I don't care. Good luck on having them change their policy for you. And so people will come up and the door knockers will want like 25 locations. And before I keep talking about this, the good news is, And there are a lot of great stuff to be had. 87% of people go to Google for search.
Oh, yeah.
75% click on organic. And you can get a map or 2 or 3 to show up if you do it correctly. And there's a heck of a lot of benefit from it. Can you do what a door knocker would like to have, which is world domination, all addresses, everything show up at the same time? No, not going to happen. In fact, Madison, I'd argue even the nationwides can't get that to happen, to speak of.
That's very much true. The large brands right now are having a very difficult time with competing with local-based businesses simply because local SEO is being so prioritized by Google.
Well, local SEO, Madison, is probably overall what the consumer demands. And so if Google's not going to show the Pack 3 with local people, does HomeAdvisor or Yelp or Angie's List show up in the Pack 3? No.
I mean, very rarely, if ever.
Madison, they've never shown up that I know of. In case you know something I don't know, they show up on organic maybe.
Oh yeah.
But they don't show up on the Map Pack because they're not there for that. That's for local. And so Google's wanting to show that because the consumers asked for that. I'm talking, Madison, about people like Tech to America and some of these commercial places. Even they won't show up usually that well because the website isn't centrally. I guess what would be the name for it? It doesn't have good topical authority because it's not local fully. You do find this on other stuff like a franchise brand sometimes, but the roofing industry has very little of that to warrant special treatment from Google.
Yeah, you get the occasional chain here and there that does a really good job, like a very rare job of optimizing their locations locally, but that's very rare.
So I'll move on to some conversations I've had. So Madison, I don't know, I probably haven't told any of you guys, but I have signed up multiple door knocking roofers since the COVID-19 breakout. And so now reason is set in, and it's not even reason, it's necessity at this point. So they set in and said, I'd better get organized and better start marching online so that I can show up. And Madison, even somebody that's not a door knocker, have you ever heard of the 6-pack or the 8-pack? So it's roofer jargon for if I do a roof at this location, I'm going to knock the neighbor. And so the house you're at and the 5, or you might go out and do 8, Yeah.
As like a child of the 90s, that's like childhood memories right there. Like it's fairly rare for me, but.
Well, so it's roofers talk about it, but the point is even a non-door knocking roofer will still knock a 6-pack or 8-pack on the street they're on. And of course they stick the sign in the yard. You guys see that all the time, right? In your own neighborhood.
Oh yeah.
In fact, you might have a roofer living in your neighborhood and they just keep their sign parked out front, or every time it hails, they put a sign out in their own yard. I have several of those roofers in our neighborhood. So even people that are they can't even door knock like that anymore. I don't know if people would appreciate it if they did door knock, but anyway, so those things are happening, and then people can show up on organic, and they can show up in a city page. They can show up on their services. And what I like to talk about mainly is organic. We talk a lot about SEO here. And so you can show up on the Map Pack 3 if you're worthy to show up there, and you can show up on hundreds of keywords as well on your organic search terms. And Madison, I know we've talked about this a few times, but we had a conversation about this. Out of the 87% of people that go to Google search for services, 75% click on organic, half of those go to Map, half of those go to the website.
And then very few of them are at PPC anymore.
Well, 25% click on paid, Madison. So, I mean, that's been raising as a percentage, but it's still just 25% if you believe whatever, stuff we read on it. So anyway, with that said, you can get hundreds of placements on there, and even your map shows up better based upon how well it's structured, what page content you have, and how well all that optimizes. And if you get reviews and you do check-ins and use Brand Review, which is a great software for reputation management, and getting more reviews, you definitely can show up. I'll say one thing about door knockers too, Madison, that's a little bit different. in case you're not aware. They're a very aggressive group of people in a good way. And and I'd argue pretty gutsy. I mean, it takes some guts to knock on a door, you know. So these aren't people that are scared of marketing. They're just people that didn't usually market online, right? So they're definitely not scared of it. And I bring it up because the door knocker is probably going to be really good about getting reviews and doing stuff online to get dominant that they know they need to do.
Because they're willing to ask for those reviews when other people are shying away from it.
They're definitely not shy. Madison, I'll get your take on it. I know I have my take on it, but what's your take on the prospect of somebody getting up that's never had an online web presence before, and let's say mapping, for example?
Like how quickly could they do it?
Today compared to 3 years ago. How about that?
Okay, yeah. So 3 years ago, even a year ago, it was significantly harder to try to knock out those tenured companies that had been there for years, the experienced ones that everyone knows about. It was almost impossible to knock them out of those MatPat slots. And then I think it was at the end of November of last year, that local search update finally made it possible for brand new businesses who optimized really well, those new brands to actually make a dent and to even rank in those MatPat placements. So it's been a very big change this last 6 months.
So Madison and I never talk about this stuff really that much, even though we work together. But I would argue that's a good assessment of it, and a little different take. I didn't realize that you attributed it to a November change.
Partly.
But I've been seeing this change occur for about really, Madison, I don't know if you've ever listened to any podcasts or videos that I've done, but I wouldn't take a new client with a new .com back in 2014, 15. Mm-hmm. There was about a 2-year period where if they called and said, I need to get set up, I'm like, hey, go somewhere else. I'm sorry, I can't help you. And I would do that because there was just no chance of them getting out and ranking. The algorithm was so slanted towards tenure, trust, and authority and time online that you couldn't get through it. Mm-hmm. And I think it was sometime around 2017 that it loosened a little bit. And frankly, in my thought process, it's been really getting easier and easier to get up in ranking. And the reason I preface it with these guys, these door knockers being a more aggressive group and not shy of getting a review, like you said, is that they are going to be willing to go in there and do that. And Madison, I think, is a perfect opportunity to combine the activity and signaling from brand review and reviews and check-ins, combined with the lessening of the restriction for tenure and trust and age, and then getting aggressive against a group of people, Madison, that don't fight for rankings. So to all you roofers that are trying to get going and you're like, oh gosh, it's going to take 6 months to a year. And Madison, by the way, most of the agencies out there still preach this, in my opinion, as a ploy to get them to stay as long as possible without canceling.
Get those annual contracts.
Yes. Yeah. And the people have heard this for almost 10 years, right? They're like, oh, and people will call and tell me the narrative without me even saying anything to them. They'll say, oh, I know it's going to take 6 months or a year. They'll start telling me the pitch. And I'll say, no, hey, stop. That's not necessarily true anymore. I expect you to be happy in 90 days or less if you do check-ins. Mm-hmm. And, if they do that, we've had people, Madison, some clients that we've had that had brand new websites that have just shot up through rankings. And it was a combination of having excellent work, base level work done by the webmasters, getting it all set up, and them using check-ins and photos and captions with brand review.
Oh yeah, the common denominator among all the different case studies that we've written about these clients is that they are very willing to try out these this new software, these new programs that we're using, like brand review, and they're enthusiastic.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, definitely the ones that will do that. And, I was having a conversation with someone the other day, and he was talking just a huge game about getting big, going for it. And I explained to him brand review, and he's like, yeah, no, I just need you to do your work and get going, get me up. I need results and I want you to do it. I was like, this is part of it, sir. This is part of getting going. And if you're not willing to participate nowadays, your brand's just not gonna do well online. I call it it's digital branding. It's whatever digital signaling Google can see. Doesn't matter if they have billboards up all over town. If that doesn't translate into a digital signal or footprint of some sort, and it doesn't have to be the same thing for everybody, but if they're not getting any credibility from Google digitally, they're just not going to do well, But these door knockers can go in there and get serious about it. And all Brand Review is a really nifty tool to use on your phone that you check on, and you check in every single job. So you leave the front door, you walk to your car, and you leave the front door, you say, hey, please leave me a review. Mm-hmm. And let's say that you're in Dallas-Fort Worth area and your office is in Arlington and you just did a job in Mansfield. So you have a Mansfield city page and you did a hail damage roof replacement. We just had bad hail, right? We had some I don't know if any of y'all got hail, but I got some hail at my house. It doesn't always hail, but I've had hail each year, 2 years in a row. Anyway, so you leave and you say, hey, please leave me a review. And they say, oh, sure, thanks. Now, before you left or at some point in the job, get a selfie of you in front of a pile of shingles on the roof, a picture of the roof, a picture of people working, assuming the picture didn't violate some OSHA regulations. I would advise against that. Or a close-up of a shingle with a chalk mark around it with a hail damage, something. So you had a photo. And when you get in the truck, you already asked for the review. Say, hey, this is great. Thanks a lot. And you say, hey, if you really want to thank me, go on Google and give me a review or somewhere. Google our name. And maybe if you ask really nice, 1 out of 10 or 12 people will give you a review. So you get in your truck, you tag your photo, you pull up in Brand Review, and you do a caption. Just did I don't know, how about an Owens Corning roof replacement in Mansfield TX? Mm-hmm. Or what would be another one? Owens Corning, or what's the other?
Certainty.
Certainty. Yeah, Certainty's a one that a lot of the guys cult follow because it's got the Tevlar strip in it and everything. But anyway, so just did a Certainty roof replacement in Mansfield TX. You put the client's cell phone and or email down. You tag your Mansfield page from a drop-down list and say, I'm in Mansfield, and I just did a hail damage roof replacement. And so there you are. You used to be a storm chaser. You didn't have a website, and now you're at a job doing a check-in. You hit check-in, and it's going to grab the geo coordinates from your phone within a 2-block radius. So it's not going to show the exact address. And it's going to drop a little pin drop on your Mansfield TX page and your hail damage roof replacement page, along with the photo, which is custom, and the caption. Now, all those bits of data are custom bits of data. The check-in code that they can read that's behind the photo that you see of the website or of the map is a geo coordinate that's wrapped in something called schema, and it's called schema check-in. It's like digitally raising your hand and say, hey, Google, please recognize that I was here doing a job. Now, if you owned a restaurant, which thank God you didn't because you wouldn't be in business right now, right? But if you owned a restaurant, Google says, how is the restaurant? But you don't own a restaurant. You're a service contractor, so they don't know you were at the house for that. So this is a way for you to say, hey, I was here. I did this job. Please recognize.
That's a great point, Nolan. We do lots of those brand review walkthroughs, and when clients ask, okay, so why am I doing these check-ins again? I say it's all about evidence. Google, people assume that Google just knows everything, by intuition, I guess. But they don't know that you're on a billboard. They don't know that you're walking from door to door. And these check-ins are your way of saying, all right, Google, we're not just saying that we do these things. Here is legitimate evidence of where I was and what I was doing. Here are the coordinates that show I was doing it. This is why you should rank me up on Google search.
When that door knocker knocks on the door, Madison gets to tell a story. He gets to talk about his grandpa, 3rd generation, second generation. He gets to talk about pulling himself up from his bootstraps and what he knows about roofing. He makes a personal connection. Mm-hmm. And they can't do that anymore. You can get close to it on. Listen, some people are still going to door knock, but I get, if you want to get kind of, if you want to start speculating about what's going to happen, who in the room thinks that we're not going to have another COVID-19 now that we've had this on the soil? I've watched people walk around with other countries with masks on for years, and you think, oh, what are they doing? Now we know what they're doing, right? They're maybe being respectful to others because they were sick. They might have been scared of a pandemic, or something. But now we know. And even if the roofer says, Nolan, forget that. This is going away. I'm a good old boy. I'm conservative. We're going to be hitting the streets door knocking. And what if it resurges in the winter, comes back next spring, jacks up your next year, and what if this isn't the only one? I would assume that with population density and other things and globalization, that it's kind of obvious this isn't going to be the only time around. So it's kind of imperative for somebody that's used to knocking a door to knocking. It's not like this isn't going to change social norms and complete paradigm shifts of the way that we live. So I don't think there's any doubt that you're going to be knocking less doors than you used to, or you're not knocking less doors than you used to. You're going to be having less conversion than you used to.
And even if this doesn't happen for the next decade, you can remember this sort of stuff, take it in stride, and use it as practice for when it happens again, who knows, 10 years from now, 15 years from now. So you'll know what to do then.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it no doubt. I mean, and these guys now can take that narrative that they used to tell, and they can paint that picture digitally, and they can take photos of jobs, make captions of what they're doing, check in, get more. So that, I didn't finish it, but when they hit that button and they check in, they're going to send a text and email to the client with a direct link to the Google review, Facebook, BBB. That client can now pick one. They already promised you they're going to give you a review, and now they're going to be faced with a text in front. They're going to be much more likely to, probably about twice as likely to leave your review. Let's say 4 out of 5 still don't leave the review. You now have the digital evidence on your website that's spidered by Google. And Madison, it surprises me, but a lot of people don't know these things, because I'll repeat it daily, that when Google has a website that has changing content, they come back maybe once a week or so. I explain it to them like this: if it's somebody who never changes content, they might not come back but once every 6 months. They're not going to waste server speed and time, because it might cost them a fraction of a cent to come by, but they can't do that times 1 trillion every week, right? And so if you make more frequent changes and it's a local roofer, they might come by once a week. If it's Amazon, they're parked there on the millisecond, right? If it's Amazon, they're just like, they're grabbing every bit of data Amazon puts out. But if you don't make any changes as a roofer, they'll never come back to your site. But if you start making changes, they'll be like, oh, what's he doing this week? Oh, he did a hail damage roof replacement in Mansfield, Texas, with a check-in code and a caption and a photo. Wow. Hey, we had somebody else just search for hail damage roof replacement in Mansfield. Maybe your page of content's more relevant than that guy's page of content, Mm-hmm. So I talk about this stuff a lot. I talk about brand review a lot, but in my opinion, at least today and for the next several years, it is SEO. It is the future of it. It's what's happening right now. And I went off on a tangent a little earlier, but the reason not only can you get up because now they give more credit to people that haven't been around as long if they have digital signaling coming in, but the old timers, Madison, are the old timers doing check-ins and photos? Like, they're not.
They have to be told a lot before they start doing it.
So yeah. But I'm not even talking about the customers you call, Madison, try to get them. Those are already people said they're going to do it with us. I'm talking about all the people that are already up there in ranking that haven't called. They're resting on their laurels and not doing anything, So there's if you want a spot up in mapping, in my opinion, you can just go take it right now if you're smart about it. It's not necessarily just aggressive about it. In fact, if you are overly aggressive, Madison, can you spam the GMB and have problems with Google?
It's very easy to accidentally sabotage your GMB if you're over ambitious.
Yeah, you could even not be cheating on their rules and still have a problem, right? If you're
Yeah,
over ambitious. Yeah.
we see it all the time.
Yeah, so meaning somebody could go, well, I've had thousands of clients, and you go call them all in 1 week to get reviews. Well, they could all be legitimate reviews, and the algorithm thinks that you lied. Is that a good example, Madison? Like, for example?
Yeah, that's a perfect example because more established companies, they don't always go after collecting those reviews. And when they think, oh, I need to catch up, immediately, they tend, whenever they try to make rapid progress on reviews or check-ins,
Yeah.
those are the sort of people who, when they try to make those shortcuts, that accidentally end up hurting themselves.
Yeah, I wasn't even talking about that though. That's a good point. Um, I'm more talking about people cheating payola for a review. Hey, I'll give you, $100 client for that. That's all against the rules. And man, some people don't know that either, and it's kind of sad when they get stung by it because they didn't know. They didn't know.
Like that one client you talked about all the time who was making millions in revenue every year and then lost 2/3 of his business.
He went down to 1.5. It's sad. And you know what? At the end of the day, that guy never came clean on how to do business. And it's not, I don't really blame him. Because he was a hardcore salesperson turned roofing business owner. Couldn't wrap his head around the fact that he needed to digitally brand himself through Google within their rules and regulations, right? And he ultimately opted for a cheap Band-Aid version, and I check on it because he's not a client, that guy. I talked to him, and he almost became a client, and he went with this trashy services and tried to get around it, and his site's still doing poorly. Actually, what I was going to do with him, Madison, was start over because the Google My Business account had been banned. I'm sorry, guys. There probably should have been a little setup to that conversation to help you understand it. But there was a guy that was in Fort Collins, Colorado, which is north of Denver. Anybody who's a roofer knows where it is, Madison, because they are there all the time. I think it's the most competitive industry in the nation or a place in the nation because any roofer that goes to Denver wants to stay there because it's beautiful. And so there's not as much population as Dallas, Fort Worth, or Houston, which are huge. Dallas, Fort Worth is probably the most competitive because we have hail. Madison, if I was a roofer, I would have liked to have been born and raised with a family business and something in Collin County. I would have taken Plano or Frisco, because it's like a vortex of hail above it and really expensive homes. But anyway, so this guy got hail every year, got $5 million worth of business, and had paid all of his clients to get reviews. And somehow it got back to Google, who must have had verifiable proof and took his Google map down. And he did get it back, but it appeared to be penalized. Madison, they even put back on the reviews, but the site never went back up. It was as though there was a penalty on it. So he kept it up, did not start over. Madison, had he done that, he'd already have 50 legitimate reviews, a new site, and climbing up through ranking. Instead, he sits there with a never-ending penalty. It's sad. But anyway, so guys, you can, as a door knocker, get up in ranking. You can get a website. We talk about organic because of the statistics that I gave you earlier. It's such a good return for such a good deal for the prices that we have that almost everybody likes it and stays as a client for years. And those statistics are that 87% of people go to Google for searching for services, 75% click on organic. And I would argue too that just one of these door knockers, by the way, even if they were door knocking, you have to have a conversion loss. Madison, would you buy a roof without looking them up online?
Oh, no. Almost nobody would look at somebody without looking at their reviews.
They do, Madison. I'm sorry, but they do. I agree with you. I'm in your camp. But I talk to the roofers, and they will go talk to. There's a swath of good old boy America left that you can walk in their house, go to the coffee table as a Silverton devil, and I'm not saying you're a bad roofer, just saying you're a great salesman, door knocker, and they can close that business, and that person won't necessarily go look. They'll sign the contract on the spot. Did you know that's how they do it?
It's hard to believe, but I can imagine. Yeah.
All right. I don't know, man. Let me see what else I got. How long we been going here, Madison? Where's our timer?
Oh, I think we've been going at least 30 minutes. I think one I wanted to mention it earlier, but I forgot to mention it. I think in our conversation, we've been talking a lot about, what Google is looking for when they want to rank you up. And we've mentioned,
Right.
how many people are using search. And I think that's a great way to look at it. You want to think about what people need most, how to serve them best, and how to put your services in as convenient a manner possible in front of them, so that they can simply connect with you the easiest way possible. And this is how you do it on a local level.
Yeah.
And it's not just, oh, I need to appease Google. It's, I need to serve people as best as I can.
I'm gonna yeah, and digitally being found, of course. I'm gonna go through just a list of things that I had here to make sure hardcore guys can do well online, as long as you don't break the Google Webmaster Rules. I would have given you a quick tutorial about that anyway had you become a client, but mainly it's not payola for no Starbucks gift cards for reviews, stuff like that. Not doing them all at one time, that sort of thing. But if you ask every single client, you consistently have them coming in, you can do fantastically. You know, the thing that's bad from the mentality of a door knocking roofer is that Google doesn't like somebody transient in a marketplace. And so a roofer will go to where the hail is that door knocks, and they may continue to do that, but you would need to stay in one location. And Madison, I've talked to a lot of these guys. Most of them, and I'm going to say like 90% plus, don't want to door knock forever. And they may even like it when they're younger, but by the time you're my age, you don't want to door knock. You don't want to miss the kids growing up. You don't want to be in the hotel rooms and all that. So most of them at some point in time want that brand. I have a really hard time. I have a roofer right now that's a friend of mine, and I can't say that about, but just a handful of clients. He's a friend of mine, and he's so hardcore. He wants to take over the world all the time, and so he never set roots in one location. And I, for the life of me, and I'm trying to get him to do a location with a different name, and I can't get him to do it because he just won't stop to think about doing it that way, because he's used to driving all over and all this stuff. I just want him to, for once, to experience being branded online, because of what he's done and moved around so much, the site that we have for him hasn't performed as well. Now he does make plenty of money on it, but it's mainly for a commercial basis. I want him to experience a website that gets branded dominant in one location, so that he's in the map pack 3 more often than not, that he's got hundreds of keywords, and he gets regular weekly call volume off of it. And I'd like for him to experience it, but it seems to fight the fabric of his being to be able to sit there in one location, do it. But that's what Google wants from people. They want someone that'll digitally brand themselves to a local market, so that Google can say, this guy in this market is proven himself. It's got great content and reviews and branded signaling coming through that you can look at, and we think you should go to him. They won't do that for somebody who just jumped into a market because hail just hit. That guy has to pay for $50 clicks or whatever it is. Clicks go up, and clicks go up quite a bit when hail hits, because everybody moves in town, door knocks, and sets up a temporary website. But those little temporary websites are not good for optimization. They want somebody that stays put, builds a reputation, builds a brand. You can get results within those little 90 days on it, but that's what they're looking for.
And we've seen plenty of examples of clients who, a lot of people they're afraid to put down roots, and they think, oh, if I put down roots, I won't be able to go to this other city and get these jobs that I've been getting. But the truth is, you can put down roots and, like you said, start getting consistent leads from that area and building your brand. And you can still get referrals from those other cities that are, a few hours drive that way. I had a roofer that I was talking to this week that he was stationed primarily in San Antonio, and he was still getting, even though he was specializing there and he had his roots put down there and he was growing, he was still getting leads out in Houston, the occasional leads here and there. And these
Yeah.
are like valuable leads too. So it's still possible. You just need to
So
start building.
I don't have a problem with a roofer trying to get a couple locations as long as they're legitimate as a Google, which is a separate USPS address with a door. It doesn't have anybody else in it that's not a home. So that it could be the cheapest metal door in the back of a cheap industrial warehouse that you got for $300. It could be a 10 by 10, but it's a door that's separate, that's recognized with your name on it. That's a legit address, right? One could argue, Madison, that they need to man the location so that if somebody walks in, it's there, but maybe not for a roofer, right? So if they had a couple locations, the reason they might want to, you brought up San Antonio, it reminded me of something. San Antonio had the worst hailstorm and monetarily in history in 2016. I think it was April. And so I had a guy tell me that 63% of the roofs were replaced. And so the next couple, well, actually they were busy all the way through 16 and a little bit of 17. But by the time 18 and 19 rolled around, and 19 had a little bit of hail, but it just wasn't as good of a market to be in. So this is where a hail guy would say, hey, Nolan, you're not totally right, dude. And because if something hits, there's nothing to do after it's over. So the reason a roofer might want multiple locations is because you never know when the big one's going to hit. It wouldn't be bad to have your feeler in a few locations. And if the big one does hit, you may not get good business for a while. It means somebody might do like literally 800 roofs one year and the next year do 150 off the same organic effort, which happened to a client of ours, by the way.
Well, it's just like a financial industry expert would recommend, diversifying your portfolio. You could get ones that have those big investment payoffs in one year and then have another location that just has a consistent stream of steady business. Yeah. And that's just a smart thing to do if possible.
I guess the problem with it is that Google's regulations, if that address is not legit, it ain't going to work. And if it's not legit, they might take the whole thing down after years of effort. Mm-hmm. But if you could get two legit locations and you're in San Antonio and Austin, that's good diversity, right? And it's right there. Or if it's San Antonio and Round Rock or
Fort Worth.
Yeah, Fort Worth and Plano. Google would be okay with that, right? And so there are some things, guys, if you're a hardcore door knocking guy, but I want to say this after talking about that. So this is a slippery slope conversation. Would you agree? To even, you don't talk to them as much, but Madison, if I start talking about multiple locations, the aggressive door knocker immediately slides down into spam, almost immediately. So when you start out a website as a door knocker or any business, any roofing business, you'll have one legitimate location. If you try to start two or three, you're riding all three horses poorly. All the effort, all the reviews, everything needs to go in one location. Also, the organic optimization gets wonky and goofy if there's too many names in it, right? And so, but if I was a roofer, I wouldn't mind having, and I live in Fort Worth. The office is in Fort Worth. We're all at home right now, but I would want one in Fort Worth, and I might take like Arlington or something like that. I don't know for me personally if I'd take Plano because it's on the other side of the world from here, but I might take like Arlington. And Google would be like, and I'd have two legit locations. Google would be like, okay, now if I tried to get 5 locations, I'd say that 2 could be legitimate. 5 at some point, they're not legit, right, Madison?
Very unlikely.
Very unlikely that somebody has 5 legitimate locations in Dallas, Fort Worth, and guess what's going to happen to you? A Google human reviewer, you're going to be hitting algorithmic pieces that set off red flags, and they're going to come looking at you. And then they take them all down except the one, So, but again, I'll remind you guys, it's better to be online and be awesome. You can have a site that'll get regular weekly call volume and have something working than it is to try to go in and cheat. It's just, and no offense to door knocking roofers at all. I have a lot of respect for door knockers because I couldn't do it when I had a home security company. I didn't have the constitution for it. So I have a lot of respect for it because I actually knock doors with groups of people, and it's rough. I could probably do it now, but I certainly couldn't do it when I was in my 20s. I just didn't have the constitution and guts to go do it. But a door knocking roofer tends to be a very aggressive marcher and can get themselves in trouble with spam on Google. But if you're not in trouble in spam and you don't do that, getting found on Google is the best marketing technique you can partake in by far. Organic is the best one, produces the best leads, and it's the best return on investment dollar. Yeah, so I highly recommend any door knockers get into it. I think that you need it at this point in time. Anything else, Madison, or you think that's about it?
I would say when it comes to like aggressive marketing is great. And I think with a door knocker mentality, it's as many doors as possible. And that kind of carries over into the digital marketing. And having somebody who can guide you through that will let you know whether or not you're accidentally biting off more than you can chew when it comes to growing your digital brand. And so just having somebody to be able to ask those questions can make a world of difference when you're growing your digital brand.
Yeah, it's a good point. And Madison, honestly, I think we're one of the only companies that would tell them the truth and help them. I'm one of the only guys that these guys that get on the phone that knows roofing, that knows what they're talking about, and would say, hey, man, that's not the right move to make right now. Here's as aggressive as we can get, and this is what we can do. And so, and if you're not told that and helped with it, and somebody doesn't lay things out for you, you can have a problem with stuff. I mean, that definitely has, it's for a different episode, but we definitely can talk about names of the company and ways to set up and formation and all of that. If somebody's never been online before, I'd say there's some opportunity to, with proper structuring, to make a way faster, better, and longer lasting impact with the way that the company is structured and set up and named and all that.
Yeah, you may be able to, grow much faster than you did in the last few years, but if you don't have that healthy foundation, then it's hard to sustain yourself in the long run.
Yeah, and Madison, most of the digital marketing companies are lip service and don't do good work, and it's hard to find somebody good. It really is. But all right, I am spent, man. I'm done. Guys, call us if you have any questions. Love to be of service. Anybody door knocking out there, get set up online. Keep door knocking, obviously, as soon as you can legally do so. I think door knocking is fantastic, and I'm sure you'll be doing it for a while. I don't think Madison's generation is going to be answering the door, though. So by the time all of my age range dies off, you better have your web stuff completely under control, because Madison's calling the cops when his door gets knocked down there.
Sorry, guys.
All right, guys. We'll see y'all later. Take it easy.
Thanks for listening.